The employee's words were just a casual remark, wanting to spend a little more time with Ethan, but they made Ethan's eyes light up. That's right, he could try these books. Even if it didn't work out as hoped, Ethan was also very curious. What abilities would he gain after learning these religious classics? Thank you. Ethan thanked the employee and then walked towards the religion section. The employee felt a little disappointed, looking at Ethan's departing figure with regret, wondering which lucky girl such a handsome young man would end up with. Ethan entered the religion section, his eyes scanning the bookshelf in front of him. This shelf was filled with Taoist classics. Ethan casually picked one down, and the system immediately displayed a notification. Ding! Skill Book by Opuziniipian, the master who embraces simplicity, inner chapters, detected. Learn? Learn! Ding! Learn Skill Book by Opuziniipian, acquired skill, chi cultivation. Streams of unfamiliar memories and experiences flooded his mind. Ethan's mouth fell open, and his eyes gradually widened. It actually worked? Chi cultivation, beginner, 0/200. You have become a third-rate chi cultivator. You can harvest energy from the void through chi cultivation. Looking at the system panel's introduction to the skill, looking at the memories that had just flooded his mind, Ethan's mood couldn't calm down for a long time. This world actually had such a thing? Were the chi cultivators of the pre-Qin period not just legends? Ethan was very surprised, stunned for a good while before he finally managed to compose himself. The so-called chi cultivation was to absorb energy from the void through specific postures and breathing rhythms, and then use this energy to strengthen oneself. What this energy actually was, Ethan didn't know. He guessed it might be oxygen. Oxygen was also a type of energy. If the oxygen content was high enough, it would have a huge impact on living organisms. Like in the Carboniferous period, the oxygen content in Earth's atmosphere was as high as 45%. At that time, creatures on Earth were all gigantic. Dragonflies could be up to a meter long. Of course, this was just his personal speculation, not certain at all. Actually, this wasn't important either. He wasn't doing scientific research. Whatever the energy was, as long as it was beneficial to him, it was enough. Placing Opuziniipian back on the shelf, Ethan picked up another Taoist classic. Chi cultivation had requirements. One had to follow fixed breathing rhythms and fixed postures. Breathing rhythms were easy, but fixed postures weren't convenient to do in a bookstore. So he wasn't in a hurry to cultivate chi, planning instead to upgrade chi cultivation first. Ding! Skill Book Tao Te Ching detected. Learn? Ding! Learn Skill Book Tao Te Ching, gain 77 experience points. Ding! Learn Skill Book Zhuangzi, Classic of Southern Fluorescence, gains 65 experience points. Ding! Learn Skill Book Lizi, Classic of Perfect Emptiness, gains 63 experience points. These Taoist classics gave a lot of experience points. After learning just 3, Ethan's chi cultivation skill leveled up. Chi cultivation, intermediate, 5/1000. You have become a second-rate chi cultivator. You have a higher understanding of chi cultivation, and your chi cultivation speed has increased. More memories and experiences flooded his mind. Ethan took a moment to absorb them, then raised an eyebrow. Intermediate chi cultivation not only increased his chi cultivation speed, but the conditions for chi cultivation also changed. He no longer needed fixed postures. He could cultivate chi as long as he kept his body still. Ethan glanced around. There weren't many customers in the bookstore at this time. The religion section attracted very few people. There was no one here but him. He opened the Lizi in his hand, pretending to read, then calmed his mind and, following the memories in his head, continuously changed his breathing rhythm. Hoo, inhale, hoo. The strange breathing rhythm initially made Ethan very uncomfortable, his face flushing red. But soon, he felt a warm current flowing from his mouth down to his abdomen, then spreading throughout his body. That warm current was like a sweet ambrosia, soothing his body and mind. The faint drowsiness from waking up too early also vanished completely. His entire body felt incredibly light and refreshed, and his spirit became invigorated, full of energy. This feeling was incredibly wonderful, causing Ethan to unconsciously immerse himself in it. Young man! Young man? Young man, are you okay? A concerned voice sounded from the side, waking Ethan from his state of chi cultivation. The speaker was none other than the bookstore employee, now looking worried and gentle. Ethan frowned. Is something wrong? The employee said, No. Nothing, it's just I was worried about you. I saw you standing here motionless for 2 hours. Young man, is something on your mind? If you have something troubling you, tell me. You're still young, there's no difficulty that can't be overcome. You have to look on the bright side of things. The employee's concern left Ethan a bit speechless. He didn't want to reciprocate her gentle affection, even though she was still quite charming. He was just surprised at how quickly time had passed. He hadn't expected 2 hours to fly by in what felt like a moment. It could only be said that the feeling of chi cultivation was truly captivating, making one completely lose track of time. Thank you, but I'm fine. Ethan smiled, then turned and picked up a copy of Tongxin Jinjing, classic of pervading mystery, from the shelf, continuing to upgrade his skill. 2 hours of chi cultivation had yielded great benefits for Ethan. His body felt incredibly clear and light, at ease, and his spirit was exceptionally full. It felt like not having bathed for a year, then going to a public bathhouse, not only soaking but also being scrubbed by someone for over an hour. Although it wasn't an immediate surge in strength, or the ability to fly over rooftops and be impervious to weapons, this change already made Ethan extremely happy. He hadn't initially wanted to become a Superman, just being healthy was good enough. But now, the effect of chi cultivation had completely exceeded his expectations. Moreover, chi cultivation had another particularly gratifying benefit for him. It could not only strengthen his body but also his mind. In other words, the number of skill books he could learn each day would also increase. One by one, Taoist classics were taken down, and Ethan's chi cultivation experience points continuously increased. The upgrade would still take a while because chi cultivation required a lot of experience points. Ethan diligently farmed experience points, which made the employee beside him very sad. She was sad that her youth had passed. She was very reluctant to part with Ethan, but reality was cruel. She could only suppress her pain and leave. But her eyes never left Ethan. She didn't know why, she just felt that the more she looked at this young man, the more handsome he became, and he had an aura that made people feel particularly comfortable, making them want to get closer. Ding! Learn skill book Donglingjinjing, classic of Numinous Grotto, gains 64 experience points. Ding! Learn skill book Typing Jingxingjun Miji, Sacred Lord's Secret Instructions of the Classic of Great Peace, gained 57 experience points. Ding! Learn skill book Chong Qing Jing Jing, Classic of Constant Clarity and Stillness, gained 58 experience points. Ding! Learn skill book Durin Jing, Classic of Salvation, gained 62 experience points. Ding! Learn skill book Shinin Jing, Heartseal Classic, gained 60 experience points. Ding! Chi cultivation skill upgraded. Chi cultivation, peak, 25/100000. You have become a peak chi cultivator, your chi cultivation level has reached perfection. After farming experience points for an hour, Ethan had gone through all the Taoist classics on the shelf in front of him and the adjacent one. The chi cultivation level finally reached peak. Going higher in the short term was impossible because he had exhausted all the Taoist classics in the bookstore. He had also tried Buddhist sutras and the Bible, scriptures from other religions, but they were useless. Not all books could turn into skill books. On the other hand, the experience points needed for an upgrade also made Ethan feel helpless. From peak level to Grandmaster level required 100,000 experience points. He didn't even know if there were that many Taoist classics in this world. There was certainly a bit of regret, but not to the point of disappointment. Ethan was still very satisfied because the peak level chi cultivation skill was already enough to make one rejoice. Advanced chi cultivation skill was a step up from intermediate. Not only was the chi cultivation speed faster, but it also didn't require keeping the body still. Eating, sleeping, walking, he could cultivate chi at any time, as long as he maintained focus and breathing rhythm. And peak level chi cultivation skill was even stronger than advanced. This time, even focus wasn't needed. Because after the chi cultivation skill reached peak level, the breathing rhythm had completely become Ethan's instinct. He didn't need to do anything, he was in a state of chi cultivation at every moment, even when sleeping. He took out his phone to check the time. It was almost 11. Time was running out. He still had to go to the film set at noon to cook for his 2 employers. Putting away his phone, Ethan went to the health and wellness section and spent some more time upgrading medicine to Grandmaster level. Almighty System Host, Ethan Miller. Skills, Cooking, Culinary Grandmaster, 11/10,000. You have become a chef with extraordinary skills, capable of creating any delicacy in the world. Medicine, Medical Grandmaster, 16/50,000. You have become a medical grandmaster. Your medical skills have reached the realm of miraculous healing. Chi cultivation, peak, 25/10,000. You have become a peak chi cultivator. Your chi cultivation level has reached perfection. Grappling grandmaster, 67/20,000. You have become a grappling grandmaster. You possess perfect grappling techniques and will become a new generation's king of grappling. Directing grandmaster, 122/20,000. You have become a directing grandmaster. You possess rich experience and control, and your works will surely be acclaimed. Acting grandmaster, 54/20,000. You have become an acting grandmaster. Your acting is captivating. Singing grandmaster, 31/20,000. You have become a singing grandmaster. You possess a God-given voice and perfect singing techniques. Musical instrument grandmaster, 44/20,000. You have become a musical instrument grandmaster. 18 types of musical instruments in your hands will all play melodious tunes. Painting grandmaster, 90/20,000. You have become a painting grandmaster. Your painting skills are divine. Calligraphy grandmaster, 12/20,000. You have become a calligraphy grandmaster. Your calligraphy blends ancient and modern, forming its own school. Magic grandmaster, 78/20,000. You have become a magic grandmaster. Your magic is dreamlike and illusory. Dance grandmaster, 203/20,000. You have become a dance grandmaster. Your dance demonstrates the peak of human physical artistry. Looking at the gradually enriched, no longer empty system panel, Ethan smiled with satisfaction. Young man, please wait a moment. As Ethan was about to leave the bookstore, the gentle, concerned employee called him back. Is something wrong? Can I have your phone number? It's like this, the store often gets new books. If there are new books, I'll call and let you know. The employee blushed slightly, unconsciously moving closer to Ethan as she spoke. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt Ethan's aura becoming increasingly pleasant. Ethan took a step back. The woman almost stumbled into his arms. Actually, he really wanted to ask the employee to keep an eye out for him, to let him know if any other Taoist classics came in. But looking at the employee's current posture, he immediately dismissed the idea. He didn't want to get entangled with a woman nearly his mother's age, even if she had a large chest. Thank you, no need. Ethan nodded, turned, and quickly walked out of the bookstore. Outside the store, the sun was still as bright, still as hot. On the street, girls were all holding up sun umbrellas, and young men were also quickening their pace, wanting to escape the scorching heat as soon as possible. Today's temperature seemed even hotter than yesterday. Ethan strolled leisurely along the roadside, not seeking shade, his pace unhurried. The scorching sun that others avoided, he didn't mind at all. This was the power of peak-level chi cultivation. Although he had just started chi cultivation, because he had reached the realm of being in a state of chi cultivation at every moment, he was already immune to heat and cold. His body automatically regulated its temperature. The intense heat was no longer a hardship for him. The scorching sunlight shining on him only felt warm. Leisurely walking towards the film set, passing by a Chinese herbal medicine shop, Ethan stopped. Although he could be immune to heat and cold, today's temperature was indeed a bit high. He planned to buy some more medicinal herbs to make some cooling tea for his 2 employers. He wasn't doing this because he cared that much. He wasn't exactly a warm and caring guy in either of his lives. The reason was simply that he couldn't stand the itch to use his skills. His medicine and cooking skills were both at grandmaster level. He always felt an uncontrollable urge to show off his talents. Making cooling tea was very suitable. With his current medical and cooking skills, he could completely concoct a cooling tea with better flavor and stronger efficacy. Licorice, salvial spike, honeysuckle, chrysanthemum, rough-leaved holly, frangipani flower. Ethan bought 2 large bags of medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs weren't afraid of being stored for a long time. As long as they weren't damp, they could be used later. Around noon, Ethan finally arrived at the film set and entered the Crimson Wing studio. The film set security had met Ethan at the hotel, knew this was the nominal husband of Megan Fox and Zendaya, didn't stop him, and happily let Ethan onto the set. The crew was still working at this time. In an antique-style room in front, Megan Fox and Zendaya, dressed in period costumes, were acting out a confrontation scene. It looked quite interesting. At this moment, the camera was only filming their upper bodies, so their upper body costumes were very proper, but their lower bodies, out of frame, were very casual. Because the weather was too hot and the costumes too thick, the hems of their costumes were all lifted and tied around their waists, revealing 2 pairs of long, snow-white legs. Combined with their engrossed acting state, it looked a bit comical. Ethan didn't disturb them, standing aside by himself, curiously watching the excitement. This film had a considerable investment. The crew alone numbered over 100, plus actors and extras. The entire film set had at least 300 or 400 people. It was a very large and bustling team. A few minutes later, the 2 women's scene ended. After the director shouted cut, several staff members immediately rushed forward. Some held up sunshades, some fanned them, and makeup artists quickly and skillfully helped them touch up their makeup. The 2 female assistants held straws, giving the 2 women water to drink. Zendaya had sharp eyes and saw Ethan from a distance, smiling and waving her pale arm at him. Megan also noticed Ethan's arrival. She lowered her head and whispered a few words to her assistant Linda Keller, after which Linda walked towards Ethan. Mr. Miller, Miss Fox, and Ms. Coleman still have 2 more scenes to shoot. Miss Fox asked me to take you to the rest area to wait for a bit. Linda Keller was actually older than Ethan, but because of the special relationship between Ethan and Megan, she still called him Mr. Just like she was older than Zendaya but still called Zendaya Ms. The rest area was right next to the film set, under a shady wall, set up with a row of tents and sun umbrellas. This rest area also showed the hierarchy of the film set. Tents with air conditioning were the highest grade, and there were only 3 of them. Next were several tents without air conditioning but with electric fans, considered second grade. The third grade was the sun umbrellas, barely providing shade. The fourth grade didn't exist. If one had to say, it would be eaves, tree shade, and the like, the resting place for extras. Megan was an investor, producer, and the female lead, so naturally, she stayed in a first-grade tent. Although Zendaya was a supporting actress, because of her fame, she also stayed in a first-grade tent. Linda Keller now led Ethan to the 2 women's tent. This place was exclusively for Megan and Zendaya. Inside the tent were chairs, 2 folding beds, air conditioning, an electric kettle, and other appliances. The conditions were relatively good. Ethan looked around the tent for a bit and asked Linda Keller, "Where are my kitchen utensils?" "Oh, they're in Ms. Fox's car." "Do you need them, Mr. Miller?" Ethan nodded. Linda Keller then led Ethan to get them. Taking out the kitchen utensils, Ethan set up a stove in front of Megan and Zendaya's tent, first brewing cooling tea, then placing a cutting board beside it and starting to knead dough. For lunch, Ethan planned to make cold noodles with tomato and egg sauce. In the scorching summer noon, eating this cool and refreshing dish was most appropriate. This was his opinion as a culinary grandmaster. Cold noodles only needed to be blanched in hot water, there was no broth, so the taste of cold noodles depended entirely on the noodles and the sauce. Many people felt that kneading dough was very simple, but it actually wasn't. The amount of water, the strength of kneading, all would affect the texture of the noodles. Ethan's skill, of course, needed no further mention. The flour in his hands continuously transformed, fluffy but not loose, yet not losing its chewiness. Megan and Zendaya's tent was next to the tent of the male lead, the second male supporting actor, and the third male supporting actor of the crew. At this time, the 3 male leads also had no scenes and were in their tent playing on their phones, scrolling through social media. But at this moment, their attention was all focused on Ethan. The male lead of this show was a currently very popular young actor in the country, Liam Preston. The second and third male supporting actors were Dylan Vance and Kevin Grant, from the same company as Liam Preston. Dylan Vance and Kevin Grant were also quite popular young male actors in the last 2 years, just not as famous as Liam Preston. When Ethan first entered the tent area, the three of them had seen him and also recognized him. Although Ethan wasn't a celebrity, because of his grand feat of marrying 5 actresses, his fame was still considerable. Although, his fame wasn't exactly positive. Things like 5 fresh flowers stuck on a pile of cow dung, the luckiest man of the 21st century who stepped in dog crap, kept man, and so on. But this didn't affect Ethan being recognized. Notoriety was also a kind of fame. Preston, see? Being a kept man isn't easy either. Having to come cook at noon like this. Don't say it, this is also a kind of ability. Dylan Vance looked at Ethan, who was kneading dough, a clear look of sarcasm and disdain on his face, and said with a smile to Liam Preston beside him. Liam Preston chuckled lightly, saying nothing. Dylan Vance continued, Preston, do you think he and Megan Fox and the others are for real or fake? I've always doubted their announcement. Got drunk and dragged a waiter to get married? And Preston, did you see? Linda Keller is actually sticking close to this guy. This must have been arranged by Megan, otherwise, Linda wouldn't follow him around. Liam Preston frowned, a growing annoyance in his heart. This annoyance partly stemmed from Ethan, partly from Dylan Vance. Although he and Dylan Vance were from the same company and usually seemed to have a decent relationship, it was only superficial. In reality, they were always secretly competing. He knew Dylan Vance always wanted to step on him to climb up, and he had also been openly and secretly suppressing Dylan Vance. He also knew that Dylan Vance was deliberately saying these things to him now because Dylan Vance knew he liked Megan Fox. Dylan Vance was trying to provoke him, wanting to see him clash with Ethan. Moreover, he also knew that Dylan Vance had always had a crush on Zendaya. If he clashed with Ethan, it would be like Dylan Vance's killing 2 birds with 1 stone plan succeeding. Liam Preston could see through Dylan Vance's dark thoughts. Anyone who could become famous in the entertainment industry wasn't truly foolish. However, understanding was one thing, but annoyance was still annoyance. The woman he liked had married another man, and a man inferior to him in every way at that. How could he feel comfortable? When he heard the news that Megan Fox and the other 4 had married Ethan, he was so angry he smashed his phone. Although Megan and the others later issued a statement, clarifying it was just a misunderstanding. But now, seeing Ethan being attentive to Megan, he still felt very uncomfortable. Just a useless bum. Men ultimately rely on ability, career, status. What's so great about cooking? A house husband? Then go open a restaurant. Liam Preston really couldn't suppress the annoyance in his heart and finally spoke out. Dylan Vance's eyes lit up. Preston, want to teach him some manners? Let him know his place. A toad, no matter how much it hops, can't join the flock of swans. Liam Preston shot Dylan Vance a look, feeling extremely disgusted. Damn, does he really think I'm an idiot? If he caused a conflict with Ethan on set, then regardless of who was at fault, it would definitely displease Megan. This film had such a large investment, Megan was surely under a lot of pressure. Causing trouble on set himself, wasn't that actively making Megan unhappy? You already said he's just a toad. Why would I lower myself to bicker with a toad? Am I sick? Liam Preston was unmoved, completely unfazed by Dylan Vance's taunts. Dylan Vance added, he's not worth your attention, Preston. But the problem is, him hanging around here is really annoying. And there's a saying, beautiful women fear persistent men. If this trash keeps clinging to Megan and the others like this, who knows what will happen in the end? Fake could become real. Dylan Vance's last sentence made Liam Preston feel a surge of anxiety. In fact, not only Liam Preston, but Dylan Vance himself also felt a gloom in his heart. Beautiful women fear persistent men, this was an eternal truth. Moreover, although they had always belittled Ethan, looked down on him, they couldn't deny that this piece of trash wasn't bad-looking. This made the two of them feel anxious and worried, not afraid of 10,000 possibilities, but afraid of that 1 in 10,000. What if Megan Fox and Zendaya really were taken in by Ethan? Women are very emotional, no one could say for sure. The two said no more, nor were they in the mood to scheme against each other. Both were thinking about how to get rid of Ethan, preferably to make him stink so bad he'd leave. Next door. The cold noodles were cooked and set aside to cool. Ethan was now making the sauce, a tomato and egg sauce. It had to retain the freshness of the tomatoes and eliminate the eggy smell. This wasn't a major dish, but it still required considerable skill. Linda Keller obediently stood by. Megan had instructed her, knowing Ethan was new to the film set and unfamiliar with the place, to accompany him. The voices of Liam Preston and Dylan Vance from the next tent weren't loud just now, she hadn't heard them. Ethan, however, heard everything clearly. After chi cultivation, his hearing and vision had become acute. He heard every word of the insults and belittlement from the two in the next tent. But hearing it was one thing, he felt nothing, nor was he angry. He had been cursed much more online. If he got worked up over these things, he would probably die of exhaustion. Arguing with irrelevant people, for Ethan, was just a waste of time, and wasting time was like wasting life. The sauce was soon ready. The film crew finally took a break. Megan Fox and Zendaya, holding up their period costume skirts, strode over on their long, pale legs. "Oh my God, it's so hot. Wow, is the food ready? What are we having for lunch? This tomato and egg dish smells amazing." Zendaya quickly approached, turned, and bent down to sniff the bowl containing the sauce. Megan sat down on the chair next to Ethan, looked at the pot of cooling tea still brewing, and asked curiously, "What's this?" "Cooling tea, very cooling. It's ready, you can drink it any time." Ethan took out bowls, intending to serve the cooling tea to the two women. The three men, Liam Preston and company, from the next tent came out at this moment, followed by their assistants, who were carrying a plate of watermelon. "Treats are here, chilled watermelon fresh from the fridge. We haven't eaten any yet, just waiting for you ladies to finish your scenes. How about that, thoughtful enough, right?" The three walked over. Liam Preston smiled at Megan Fox and Zendaya. Dylan Vance, beside him, sneered at Ethan, "Dude, it's noon, over 90 degrees, and you're giving them hot tea. Whether it cools them down, I don't know, but it's very possible they'll get heatstroke." Ethan had no intention of replying, not even glancing at Dylan Vance, just looked at Megan and Zendaya with an inquiring expression. The two women didn't think much, instinctively choosing the chilled watermelon. In the scorching summer noon, eating a piece of chilled watermelon was indeed very enjoyable. Seeing this, Ethan put down the teacups, didn't say much, stood up, took two slightly larger bowls, and began to serve the cold noodles to the two women. "You have a piece too, it's very sweet." Megan held a piece of watermelon and offered it to Ethan. "Thanks, I'm not eating." Ethan shook his head, placed the prepared cold noodles and sauce in front of the two women, and said, "Cold noodles with tomato and egg sauce. Season it to your own taste. I suggest using less sauce, or you'll get thirsty. Still homemade noodles. Ethan, you're amazing. Even my mom can't make homemade noodles this good." Zendaya giggled, giving Ethan a thumbs up, then held her collar with one hand and started eating with chopsticks in the other. So delicious. Megan, hurry up and try it." Megan put down the watermelon and was about to pick up her chopsticks when Paul Rudd walked over from a distance, also in costume, but not ancient attire. It was a Republic-era outfit. "Not cool at all. We agreed I'd freeload, but you didn't even wait for me." Paul Rudd was definitely a well-known figure in the industry, everyone here knew him. People greeted him one after another. Liam Preston and the other two also became extremely polite and enthusiastic at this moment. "Mr. Rudd. Teacher Huang." A respectful term for Paul Rudd, using his original Chinese surname equivalent, "Hello, Teacher Huang." Paul Rudd replied a few times, then sat down next to Ethan. "Cold noodles for lunch? Buddy, you're my real brother, knowing this is my favorite." "Huh? What's this? Cooling tea?" Ethan nodded. Paul Rudd clapped his hands. "Excellent, I'm parched. You don't know, I filmed 23 scenes this morning, drank 2 vials of anti-heatstroke medicine. It's a miracle I'm not dead." Paul Rudd then ladled a large bowl of cooling tea. Liam Preston offered watermelon. "Mr. Rudd, have some chilled watermelon. This is refreshing." Paul Rudd smiled. Kids don't know anything. In summer, cooling tea is the best. Paul Rudd tilted his head back and gulped down several large mouthfuls, finishing the entire bowl of cooling tea, burped, and then shouted, "Refreshing." Zendaya, with noodles in her small mouth, blinked her large eyes curiously. Can't cooling tea be drunk cold? Isn't drinking such hot tea making you hotter? Paul Rudd smiled at Zendaya. Who told you cooling tea is cold? Cooling tea indeed wasn't cold, not even technically tea. It was brewed from Chinese medicinal herbs, more accurately, it should be considered a type of decoction. Cooling tea was also best drunk hot. It was hot and bitter upon first taste, but after going down, there would be a sweet aftertaste, a refreshing feeling from the inside out. Perhaps Paul Rudd's refreshing was too invigorating. Everyone around was a bit curious. Everyone had drunk cooling tea before, things like Wang Lao Ji or similar brands, but it was just okay, drunk like a soft drink, nothing special. Far from reaching the level of refreshing. Let me try. Zendaya put down her bowl and chopsticks, ladled another bowl of cooling tea from the pot, first wrinkled her nose and sniffed it, then imitated Paul Rudd and took several large gulps. Wow! Tiny beads of sweat were clearly visible on the tip of Zendaya's nose, but at this moment, she didn't feel hot at all. Instead, her whole body felt cool. This feeling was simply more comfortable than being in air conditioning. It's really thirst-quenching and cooling. Amazing! Zendaya's beautiful face was full of surprise, and then she took a few more sips. Megan couldn't help but ladle another bowl, her reaction no different from Zendaya's. Now they knew, this was true cooling tea. All these years, they had been deceived by those Wang Lao Ji types. Is it real or fake? You guys aren't acting, are you? Is it that exaggerated? Liam Preston smiled at the two women. Zendaya said, "What's there to act about? It's really comfortable, even more comfortable than eating ice cream or watermelon." Megan took out an unused bowl. You'll know once you try it. Megan was about to ladle cooling tea for Liam Preston when Ethan suddenly grabbed the lid and covered the pot of tea. Megan's expression froze, others also froze accordingly. Dylan Vance sneered. Dude, too stingy. Such a big pot, you can't even let Preston have a bowl? Ethan nodded seriously. No. The atmosphere on set fell silent, then became awkward. Megan's hand holding the ladle paused mid-air, her beautiful face expressionless. Zendaya pouted, looked at Ethan, looked at Megan, then at Liam Preston, finally reaching out with her small hand to tug at the corner of Ethan's shirt. If it's not allowed, then let's not drink it. You guys eat. I'm going back to eat too. Liam Preston looked dejected, nodded at everyone, and then returned to his tent. At first, he was furious, wishing he could directly attack. But he quickly calmed down. Not only was he not angry, but he even felt a bit joyful. He felt Ethan was being very foolish because this, apart from displeasing Megan, had no other effect. That's why he had feigned dejection and taken the initiative to back down. In the current situation, his retreat was in advance. The balance in Megan's heart would also completely tilt towards him. Dylan Vance, Kevin Grant, and their 3 assistants also returned to their tent. Only Ethan, Paul Rudd, Megan, and Zendaya remained. Linda Keller and Maya Pham very sensibly ran off first to avoid the city gates catching fire, bringing disaster to the fish in the moat. Do you have a conflict with him? Megan put down the ladle, looked at Ethan, and spoke. Ethan shook his head. No. Megan's beautiful eyebrows furrowed slightly. Then what's the reason? There has to be a reason. Ethan said, he badmouthed me behind my back, said I was a toad lusting after swan meat. Megan said nothing at this moment. Zendaya, however, placed the small hand that had been tugging at his shirt corner onto his arm, using this action to show her silent support. Paul Rudd sighed. Don't take it to heart. This industry is like that. People in front, ghosts behind. Sarcasm and snide remarks are common. If you get upset over this, you'll die of anger. Just ignore it. Ethan said calmly, not upset, but not happy either. Anyway, if someone called you swan meat, you wouldn't be happy either. Paul Rudd nodded, but quickly froze, then burst out laughing.
Zendaya looked at Paul Rudd with a confused expression, still not reacting.
Megan, on the other hand, had reacted, laughing and swatting Ethan's arm.
You mean we're the toads? Zendaya was still thinking. The atmosphere eased.
The four of them finished lunch together. Paul Rudd suggested leaving and also asked Ethan to go out with him for a bit.
Only after the two left the rest area did Zendaya's foolish laughter ha-ha ring out. She finally understood the toad and swan meat joke.
Her slow reaction made Megan sigh in exasperation.
Many people demonize the entertainment industry, it's actually not that scary. But then again, this industry isn't that simple either. To put it bluntly, it's a field of fame and fortune.
The pie is only so big, if you eat, others can't.
So it can't be perfect. Having some grudges is perfectly normal.
Leaving the film set, Paul Rudd pulled Ethan to a shady tree and patiently advised him.
Ethan nodded, indicating he understood, and asked, "Do you have grudges with anyone?"
"Of course, what am I talking about myself for?"
"We're talking about you."
Paul Rudd patted Ethan's shoulder.
"I don't know Liam Preston well, but I've heard this kid isn't simple. You should be careful.
As the old saying goes, an open spear is easy to dodge, but a hidden arrow is hard to guard against.
If anything happens, don't act rashly. Call me, I'll help you out." Ethan said, "What hidden arrow could he have? Shoot me dead?"
Paul Rudd said, "Are you deliberately being difficult? He wouldn't go so far as to shoot you dead, but he has ways to deal with you."
Ethan was a bit interested. "Tell me, for example? What tricks do you guys in the entertainment industry use to settle grudges?" Paul Rudd leaned against the tree.
"Slandering your reputation, does that count as a trick?"
Ethan shook his head. "Doesn't count.
I'm not in your industry, and my reputation is already bad."
Paul Rudd retorted, "Well, it can get even worse. Even if you don't work in the entertainment industry, you'll still have to work in the future. It will definitely be affected." Ethan said confidently, "It won't. I believe in my skills."
Paul Rudd's lips twitched. This was truly irrefutable.
Setting aside other things, Ethan's cooking skills were indeed superb. As long as he didn't poison anyone to death, his skills were absolutely unassailable. That's not all. I'm just giving an example. There are definitely other tricks. For example, what if he isolates you? No one on the film set pays attention to you. How would you?
Paul Rudd suddenly stopped, unable to continue. He felt this was also useless against Ethan. He wasn't part of the film crew anyway, and looking at his indifferent attitude, even if others actively tried to talk to him, he probably wouldn't respond.
Damn it, you're really a jinx.
Paul Rudd made things difficult for himself.
What if he finds a few guys, ambushes you, beats you up, but doesn't kill you? That's possible, right? Ethan smiled. I'm even less afraid of that. I know martial arts. Paul Rudd also laughed. Oh, come on. A snake scared you like that, and you know martial arts? Anyway, just be careful. If anything happens, don't carry it yourself. Call me. I can still protect you, understand? Ethan nodded, not refusing Paul Rudd's kind intentions.
Paul Rudd returned to his film crew.
Ethan, however, didn't go to Megan and Zendaya's area.
He was only responsible for the two women's 3 meals, he had no other obligations.
For 100,000, what more could they ask?
He was a grandmaster-level chef, completely worth that price.
Thanks to chi cultivation, he wasn't sleepy, nor did he feel hot.
So he continued to wander around the film studio. Although this was a film studio built later, not a real scenic spot, there were still many places worth seeing. It basically managed to recreate ancient styles. The Ming and Cheng Imperial Gardens, the riverside scene at Qingming Festival Area, Guangzhou Street, Hong Kong Street. Because it was noon, there were very few tourists in the film studio, and most film crews were on lunch break, so the studio was very quiet. Sometimes, he wouldn't see a single person for a long time.
Ethan wandered alone, not lonely, even somewhat enjoying the tranquility.
After strolling through Hong Kong Street and preparing to leave, Ethan suddenly stopped. He actually saw a bookstore at a corner. Initially, he thought it was a set piece. Hong Kong Street had all sorts of shops, but they were mostly just facades for filming, largely empty inside, only decorated when needed for filming. But when he entered the bookstore, he discovered it was actually a real bookstore. The bookstore wasn't large, only one story, with several bookshelves around the perimeter and in the middle. The shop assistant was a 17 or 18-year-old youth, smoking a cigarette and playing games on a computer. Ethan entered, and the youth didn't even glance at him. Ethan walked along the rows of bookshelves and quickly understood why this bookstore was opened here. Because the books in the bookstore were all specialized: martial arts, directing, acting, singing, musical instruments, painting, calligraphy, magic, dance, and so on. Presumably, it catered to film crew personnel, because only these people would need them. Ethan wasn't very interested in these things, but with the attitude of nothing else to do, might as well grind some skills, Ethan began to grind in the bookstore. This sweep lasted for more than half a day. By the time Ethan left the bookstore, the sunset had already dyed the horizon red. The young employee was still engrossed in his game. Ethan even wondered if he knew that his store had had a visitor for over half a day. Of course, these things weren't urgent, nor important. Ethan at this moment, his mood was a bit strange. Almighty System host, Ethan Miller. Skills, list of Grandmaster skills as previously translated. Dance Grandmaster, 203/20,000. You have become a Dance Grandmaster. Your dance demonstrates the peak of human physical artistry. The system panel had become richer, densely packed, almost ready to turn a page. Suddenly having so many skills should have been a joyous occasion. Even children know the saying, you can't have too many skills. But, at this moment, Ethan's mood was very strange, or rather, quite complicated. Because he discovered that his almighty system had side effects. The almighty system wasn't truly almighty. This side effect appeared at the Grandmaster skill level. Below Grandmaster level, skill upgrades relied on accumulating experience. But when a skill reached peak level, accumulating more experience was useless. To advance from peak level to Grandmaster level, there had to be a sublimation of mindset. Ethan's current problem was precisely with his mindset. What was the mindset of a Grandmaster? Confidence, persistence, love, passion, investment. These states of mind, or rather, this kind of mindset wasn't wrong. Not only was it not wrong, but it was also a necessary element for success. To succeed in a certain field, one must have such a mindset. Only with a sufficient mindset can one get better and better, can one advance further. But there are exceptions to everything. The ancients said it clearly: stretch too tight and it will snap. When things reach an extreme, they reverse. The sun at its zenith will set, the full moon will wane. When this kind of mindset exceeds a certain limit, it will completely transform into something else. Confidence becomes conceit, persistence becomes stubbornness, love becomes obsession, fascination becomes arrogance. Ethan's current situation was like this. When he had 1 or 2 Grandmaster skills, he didn't notice much. But now, he had about 11 Grandmaster skills. Some people, just by succeeding in one field, already become arrogant. One can imagine how great the influence of 11 skills would be. Fortunately, Ethan had lived 2 lives, his mindset far superior to ordinary people, so he could endure it. If it were someone else, they would probably have gone mad long ago. But even he was almost at his limit now. It wasn't that he couldn't learn more skills in the future, but he could only learn skills below Grandmaster level. This result was something Ethan hadn't expected at all. He had thought he could learn indefinitely, upgrading every skill to its unupgradable limit. But now it seemed, this could only remain a beautiful dream. The night breeze blew, dispelling the heat of the day. The clouds in the sky were beautiful, fiery red and expansive sunset glow. Ethan stood silently by the roadside with his eyes closed. More than 10 minutes later, he opened them. The strange and complicated expression on his face had disappeared. What he had gained most after 2 lives was actually not the almighty system, but understanding what he cared about, what he wanted. This was the gain after having died once. Whether there was a system, whether there were skills, actually didn't matter. What mattered was whether you were living earnestly. For those who know how to cherish, even living for a single day is splendid. For those who live listlessly, even living to 100, they will still be listless. This was Ethan's greatest support. Crimson Wings film set. Megan Fox finished a scene and returned to the tent to rest. Zendaya was lying on a recliner, playing on her phone. Ethan still not back? Megan sat down next to Zendaya, took a sip of water through a straw. Zendaya dangled her slippers on her small, pale feet, shook her head, and said, "Nope." "What are you doing?" Megan leaned over to look at Zendaya's phone. Zendaya said, "Discussing today's events with Jenna, Sydney, and Olivia." Megan paused for a moment. "What events?" "Yours and Ethan's, of course." "What about me and him?" Zendaya sat up, crossed her pale legs, and looked at Megan seriously. "Don't you realize it at all?" Megan was a bit bewildered by Zendaya. "What should I realize?" Zendaya sighed, her face full of concern. "Don't you see that Ethan already likes you?" Several dark lines appeared on Megan's face. "That's enough out of you, nagging all day." Zendaya scooted closer. "I'm serious. Look, Liam Preston likes you, that's true, right?" Megan pursed her lips and said nothing. Liam Preston indeed had feelings for her. Although he had never formally confessed, his intentions were basically clear to the entire film crew. A smart person like Megan naturally could sense it. "Today, Ethan and Liam Preston quarreled because of you. That's also true, right?" "Stop talking nonsense." Megan shot Zendaya a look. "Which of your eyes saw it was because of me?" Zendaya humphed. "Still denying it?" "All my eyes saw it, okay?" Those two were clearly fighting over a lover. "Isn't that obvious?" "Whatever you say." Megan turned over, her back to Zendaya. "Whether you pay attention to me or not, that's how it is. This is the truth, irrefutable." "Irrefutable my foot." Zendaya propped her chin on her hand, smiling. "It's useless to avoid it. But your psychology makes it very difficult for me to understand. I'm just asking you to admit Ethan likes you, not asking you to admit you like Ethan. What are you resisting for?" Megan was a bit annoyed by Zendaya, sat up, and stared with wide eyes. "Fine, I admit it. I admit Ethan likes me. Then what? What can be done about it?" Zendaya looked straight at Megan. "Then what about you? What about me? Do you like Ethan?" Megan turned her head to the side, paused for a moment, then said, "No." "Really? Really? Really not even a little bit? Not even a tiny bit of a flutter? Oh my God, are you annoying or what?" "No means no. Do I have to swear it to you?" He. Zendaya giggled. For some reason, hearing Megan say that, she suddenly felt a sense of relief. "Don't be nervous, just a discussion." "What are you getting worked up about?" Megan humphed. "Boring. I think you're just idle." Zendaya tilted her head, chuckled, then sighed. "AI, Ethan is so pitiful." "You're the pitiful one." A warm, magnetic voice sounded, and then Ethan's figure appeared in the tent. Megan and Zendaya immediately froze, as if hit by a body freezing spell, stunned and motionless. Both their beautiful faces showed embarrassment. Badmouthing someone behind their back, and then being caught red-handed, nothing could be more shameful. As the subject of the discussion, Ethan's reaction was much calmer than theirs. "What's for dinner?" Anything's fine." Ethan turned and left the tent. Seeing this, Megan immediately turned and punched Zendaya hard on the back several times. What are you hitting me for?" "Help! It's all your fault." "What's my fault?" "You're the one who said you didn't like him, didn't feel a flutter. You're still talking." The two women playfully wrestled for a while, their pale arms and legs flashing, a beautiful scene unfortunately unappreciated by anyone. "Megan, do you think Ethan will hold a grudge and poison us?" Zendaya turned and hid by the tent door, her body concealed behind the curtain, only half of her beautiful face showing, watching Ethan cook outside while speaking to Megan behind her. Megan didn't reply to Zendaya, just crossed her arms and quietly watched Ethan. She was observing whether Ethan was really pretending nothing had happened, or if he truly didn't care. It wasn't that she hadn't considered it. If Ethan developed feelings for her, or for one of the five of them, would the divorce after a year still proceed as planned? This was something she had always been quite worried about, afraid her fears would come true. If that really happened, there would undoubtedly be more trouble after a year. Although they had signed an agreement with Ethan, she was very clear that the agreement had no legal force. If Ethan refused to divorce, then the agreement would just be a joke. Because of this concern, she had been deliberately observing Ethan for the past 2 days. From what she had seen so far, she was a bit confused. To say Ethan had no favorable impression of her or Zendaya, yet he treated them very well, willingly preparing 3 meals a day. But to say Ethan liked them, he always seemed indifferent. Like just now, if Ethan really had feelings for her, hearing those words from her, he couldn't possibly be so calm. But the reality? Ethan was indeed very calm. Still leisurely cooking, his cooking skills as good as before, still so focused, as if cooking was a great enjoyment. There wasn't a hint of disappointment or sadness about him, very calm, as placid as water. Yet, he didn't make people feel he was strange. Instead, there was a kind of natural, unrestrained feeling. Clearly wearing cheap street clothes, but you found it hard to associate words like tacky or ugly with him. It seemed he fundamentally didn't need these external things to adorn himself. So, he doesn't have even a little bit of a favorable impression of me? Megan lowered her eyes, pursed her lips. There was none of the imagined relief. Instead, there was an indescribable, unspeakable sourness. Am I not beautiful? Or did I do something to displease him? At noon, I didn't say a single word to defend Liam Preston, and he's still the male lead of this show. Ha! What's he doing? Zendaya's words woke Megan from her reverie. She looked up, only to see Ethan had sat down, holding a knife, seemingly carving something. The 2 women couldn't suppress their curiosity and went out of the tent together, approaching Ethan. Ethan was indeed carving. A peeled carrot, hollowed out, leaving only a thin layer. Ethan was using that thin layer to carve, sculpting a scene of the film set. Megan and Zendaya watched, dumbfounded, looking at the sculpture, then looking up at the film set in front of them, almost identical, not a bit different. Oh my God, you're too amazing. Zendaya was endlessly amazed. Megan was also deeply shocked. This was even more shocking than his cooking. After all, the sense of taste was far less rich than the sense of sight. Carving could also be considered a form of cooking, but just a different branch. To reach Ethan's level, even other Grandmaster-level chefs couldn't do it. The reason he could achieve this was because he wasn't just a culinary Grandmaster, but also a Grandmaster painter. The mutual influence between skills was much greater than 1 + 1. Beautiful? Ethan asked without looking up. Megan instinctively nodded, but quickly stopped, her chin slightly raised, feigning arrogance. Zendaya, however, was very honest, nodding repeatedly. Want it? Yes, are you planning to give it to me? In Zendaya's large eyes, the smile couldn't be hidden, her beautiful, fair face showing a radiant glow. Nope. Ethan said nonchalantly, then squeezed his hand hard. The exquisitely beautiful carrot sculpture was instantly crushed. It was just a carrot, very brittle. Why did you do that? Annoying, stingy, humph. Zendaya watched the exquisitely beautiful carrot destroyed by Ethan, her heart aching, her cheeks puffed out in anger, glaring at Ethan. Ethan wiped his hands. Do you think I'm a street artist? Anyone can have it? My works aren't that cheap. Zendaya was still unhappy, her beautiful face leaning close to Ethan, her large eyes wider, as if trying to look fierce, but only appearing more adorable. What do you mean? How did I become anyone? I'm your wife, okay? Sorry, I don't have much, just a lot of wives. Ethan, you'd better take back what you said. You've hurt me deeply. I'm very angry now. I'll never pay attention to you again. I won't eat the food you cook either, even if I starve to death. Ethan ignored Zendaya, stood up, walked to the stove, and lifted the pot lid. Food's ready. Let's eat. Okay. Zendaya replied without any backbone, scurrying to Ethan's side, turning and sniffing, then smiling. Smells so good. Megan had been watching the 2 banter with her arms crossed. Seeing their familiar intimacy, she couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Being as carefree as Zendaya was also really good. Paul Rudd didn't come tonight but called, saying he had a big night scene and didn't know when he'd finish, so naturally, he couldn't eat. Actors filming basically have no fixed schedule. 9 to 5 office hours don't apply to this industry. Because filming isn't something you can just do whenever you want, many external factors can affect the progress in shooting plan. For example, night scenes are troublesome to shoot during the day. You have to set up tents to create a night scene, which is time-consuming, laborious, and expensive. So unless it's very urgent, or an actor's schedule is really difficult to arrange, night scenes are usually shot at night. Crimson Wings also had night scenes tonight, but the task wasn't heavy, at least not requiring an all-nighter. After dinner, Megan and Zendaya went to film. Zendaya's scenes tonight were relatively few, just one group scene, with not many lines. She was done quickly. Normally, if an actor finished early, they would basically leave the set and return to the hotel to rest. But today, Zendaya didn't leave immediately. After removing her makeup and changing out of her costume, the girl, holding an ice cream bar, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, strode over to Ethan on her long, pale legs. "What are you looking at?" Zendaya followed Ethan's gaze forward and asked curiously. Ethan leaned against a tree with his arms crossed. "Watching filming." Zendaya, like a puppy, licked her ice cream. "You like watching this? It's so boring. Do you like acting?" In the eyes of many outsiders, filming should be easy, fun, and particularly interesting. Watching many behind-the-scenes clips from movies and TV shows, you can see actors being very relaxed, often bursting into laughter, and the atmosphere on set is relatively good. But in reality, behind the scenes are just behind the scenes, just exciting clips edited by the production company. The actual filming site is very dry. A scene might be shot over and over again 10 or 20 times, a line might also be repeated 10 or 20 times. It might take a whole morning to shoot one scene, or a small mistake by someone could ruin the entire shot. So filming, most of the time, is just repeating the same things over and over. Once or twice might be interesting, but many times, there's nothing interesting to say. Coupled with the consumption of mental and physical energy, actors often develop feelings of irritability and fatigue. For many actors, especially professional, serious ones, filming isn't fun at all, but particularly tiring. Some people, after filming a show, might fall seriously ill or rest for several months. Of course, this refers to professional actors. Those kinds of actors who just recite 1 2 3, 4 5 6 7 for their lines are not among them. Ethan initially had no interest in filming. He had no contact with this field in either his past or current life. The so-called different professions are like different mountains. He wasn't interested, nor did he understand it. Even with 5 superstar wives, even accompanying his wife to the film set himself, he still felt he and the people here belonged to completely different worlds. In the morning, he even went out for a walk by himself. But, now it was completely different. With his directing and acting skills both at grandmaster level, he had an incredibly fervent love for filmmaking. This was also one of the side effects of the almighty system. Whenever he upgraded a skill to grandmaster level, he would develop an incredibly strong love for that skill, for that profession. This was an unbreakable infinite loop. To upgrade a skill, to reach grandmaster level, one must elevate one's mindset, develop an incredibly strong love. And because of love, Ethan would become particularly fascinated and immersed in things he initially had no interest in. This was the case at this moment. In the morning, he felt uninterested, indifferent. Now, he couldn't help but pay attention. He would think about whether the director's ability to coordinate and control the scene was sufficient, think about whether the director's use of camera angles was reasonable, think about how this scene should ultimately be shot. He would think about whether the actor's performance was up to par, whether the lines fit the character's personality and the plot development, think about how the actor should use body language to coordinate with this segment of the performance.